Ondo Finance is rallying. The price is going up, and that's for good reason. Of course, there are news around the project. We're going to cover those, but actually we anticipated this rally. Not because I know what kind of news will come, but because there is a certain sensitivity to events depending on how currently an asset is valued. And Ondo Finance, relatively speaking, was quite cheap at the time. So this is what I'm talking about. Today, the Ondo price is up by 9%, and it was up even a bit more just a few hours ago. And here's the news. Fidelity is rolling out a money market fund on Ethereum with Ondo holding 202 million. And here's the video published 1 week ago, or to be a bit more exact, a bit more than 10 days ago. And that video did get quite a bit of attention, 48% more than the average video on this channel. And so this is the age-old question. What's actually driving prices? Is it the psychology of the market, or is it the news? I think it's a mixture of both, as in whatever news come out will be digested differently by the market depending on what the current state of the psychology is. Because have a look at the chart that we covered in the video 10 days ago. This is Ondo Finance relative to the others market cap. So relative to all of the other altcoins that are not in the top 10. And here is that updated chart. We suddenly saw a rally that now starts to correct somewhat, but we do have more upside potential, because have a look at this. When we zoom out, when we look at the exact same chart that we had here in the video where we talked about the potential bounce, now we've got that bounce. And still there is more upside. Since we've already corrected a little bit more, the potential maximum upside from here is an outperformance versus the rest of the altcoins by 72%. Now, why do I look at these relative valuations? Why is it so interesting to look at Ondo Finance relative to the rest of the altcoins and not just simply at the US dollar chart? The reason why I look at this is because crypto is a game of capital rotation. So sometimes all attention is on asset A, and then asset A is going up. Then after a while, whatever news come out, they tend to be less relevant over time, and attention moves to asset B, and then asset B is going up. So it's simply just a pool of capital that gets allocated towards different asset classes at different points in time. On top of that effect, we also have opportunity costs, right? The reason why we get into an altcoin in the first place is because we expect outperformance versus just buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana, right? We take on more risk by buying an altcoin, so we should also expect more performance. If we do not get more performance, but we're taking on more risk, then of course we've got worse risk-adjusted return. Now there's a fundamental problem with most altcoins, and Ondo Finance isn't that different. And that's the problem of token dilution. Have a look at this all-time price chart of Ondo Finance and compare this with the all-time market cap chart of Ondo Finance. It's not exactly the same. It looks similar, but it's not exactly the same. The price still has a 2x to reach the all-time high. The market cap is much closer to the all-time high. If the market cap was to 2x, we'd be at 6.4 billion, but the all-time high is at only 4.6 billion. So what's going on? It's of course token dilution. It's more and more tokens that hit the market. And for Ondo Finance, we've got a token unlock at the beginning of every year. But it seems like the selling pressure doesn't suddenly shoot up at the beginning of each year. I mean, so far we only have one data point, January of 2025. And here's Ondo's performance relative to the other altcoins at that point. So we already saw a few people betting on falling prices 2 weeks prior to the unlock. Since the unlock, Ondo Finance underperformed the altcoins by 21%. But if you include the sell-off that happened prior to the unlock, we've got an underperformance of 39%. So it seems like the market is anticipating certain events, and it seems like the market is looking ahead for roughly 2 weeks. And so that means we might be cautious again at the middle of December of this year. So that's still 3 months from now. That's still more than enough time for Ondo Finance to outperform the rest of the market. Maybe we get another positive piece of news, and maybe history will simply repeat itself. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's definitely a reasonable scenario. Because here's the thing, the Ondo Finance platform gets more and more adoption over time. What we see over here is the total value locked, or how much capital is currently in Ondo. And this continues to grow rather constantly. We are currently at 1.5 billion of TVL, while the market cap of Ondo Finance is at 3.2 billion. So that doesn't seem to be too bad. 2x the TVL when the growth trend is that constant. The market cap, of course, is a bit more fluctuating. The fully diluted valuation is somewhat stable. So in other words, the token dilution is not depressing the price more than the inflows. I actually do like this unlock schedule. First of all, because it's very predictable, but secondly, also the unlock tends to be smaller and smaller relative to the current circulating supply. So yes, the first unlock was very brutal. The circulating supply doubled, but now it's only going to grow by 50%. And afterwards, it's only going to grow by a third, etc. There are already a lot of holders of the Ondo token on the Ethereum chain. We've got now 161,000 holders. Now, not all of those holders are created equally, right? Some of them might just be arbitrage bots that only hold a few cents worth of the token. So let's look at this again in more detail. On the left side, we see the number of wallets that hold at least 1,000 Ondo tokens. In the middle, it's 10,000 Ondo tokens. On the right, it's 100,000 Ondo tokens. Since Ondo is close to $1, this also equates to roughly the US dollar amounts. And we can see how this grows quite constantly over time. In the last year, the number of holders roughly doubled, as did the supply. And then the question is, of course, will that growth continue? Because we do know that the supply growth will continue. The growth for the larger wallets is a bit less constant. This is to be anticipated, but still, even the whales are not taking profit. The whales are at an all-time high allocation. They bought massively in the middle of January of this year, and that was when the price was comparatively low. So it seems like the whales are doing something right. Of course, there's not just the spot market, there's also the bets on the price, the perpetual futures, and most people that are in the perpetual futures are betting on rising prices of Ondo over time. There is a positive funding rate. So the longs have to pay the shorts to get more price exposure to Ondo. The market as a whole tends to be bullish. Trading volume of perpetual futures is relatively constant. It's not that elevated that we should be concerned that the price might be artificially inflated. And yes, there are sometimes liquidations on the long side, but that's to be expected when the majority of traders are betting on rising prices, that there's going to be more liquidations on the long than on the short side. Here's the open interest over time, and this is the only potential issue with Ondo Finance, because there is a positive correlation between the bets on the price and the spot price itself. As in, when there's more short-term speculation by the perpetual futures traders, the spot price tends to be high. When there's less speculation, the spot price tends to shrink as well. And currently, we are not necessarily that low in the Ondo Finance open interest. I'd feel much more comfortable seeing this at a lower range, because then even additional short-term capital could flow very quickly into Ondo Finance and push the price higher. Now, the main driver for future price appreciation probably has to come from additional purchases through the spot market, which again is quite likely to happen if we do get positive news around the project as well. Again, I think it's a symbiosis between the news and the market psychology. If there's positive news while the price is depressed, we tend to see above average reaction to that news. If the price is already high and then we get positive news, the market won't react that much. That's how I see things playing out for Ondo Finance as well. Now, there is somewhat of an argument to be made that altcoin season might be imminent. And so that's based on the others dominance chart. It shows how much of all of crypto in percent is currently in the altcoins that are not in the top 10. And this seems to bottom out at very similar levels, and it might have just bottomed recently. In the past, when we were at similar levels, the altcoins outperformed the rest of crypto by more than 300%. So I understand this argument, but there's a bit of a problem with the argument, because the others dominance measures the market cap, but market cap is a very different thing to prices. There's a dedicated website called Tokenomics AI that does nothing but measure the token inflation of various altcoins. So let's have a look at Aptos, for example, here at number 1. This is the Aptos price relative to the altcoin market cap. Since March of 2023, this went down by 88%. And the reason is an ever-expanding token supply. As there's more and more tokens hitting the market and supply is higher than demand, then of course the price has to go down, at least relatively speaking. This is the Aptos market cap chart over time. It's at very similar levels compared to February of 2023 at roughly 3 billion, so barely a change. But in February of 2023, the Aptos price was at $18. and now it's at $4.39. So this is how much impact token inflation actually has. The others dominance does not look at prices, it only looks at market caps. But we do not get market cap returns, we get price returns. Market caps can be unchanged, prices won't be unchanged if the supply just keeps on increasing. Now, how much of a problem is this really in the grand scheme of things? Is this just a few select altcoins, or do we see this on a broader scale? The answer is somewhat depressing. We unfortunately do see this on a broader scale. So each week we see roughly 1 billion worth of token unlocks. If we do not see at least 1 billion of additional demand coming into the altcoin market every single week, then the prices have to come down. The others dominance might be unchanged, but the price of individual altcoins definitely do get negatively impacted. Aptos is currently the 42nd largest cryptocurrency. It's just an example. Let's have a look at the top 100 cryptocurrencies. In the last year, Bitcoin went up by almost 100%. We've got 26 out of 100 altcoins that did better than Bitcoin. 73 altcoins did worse than BTC. And so here's what I personally do. I'm simply just betting on bad altcoins to continue to do worse. So we can just flip this chart around. This is the Bitcoin price relative to the Aptos price. At the bottom, we've got the others dominance again. So the others dominance did not change at all in the last 2 years, right? It went flat, while Bitcoin's price relative to the Aptos price appreciated by 400%. So this is really where I believe the alpha in crypto is. It's the market inefficiency of highly inflating altcoins. I'm following this strategy already for roughly 4 years. So I'm betting on poorly performing altcoins. I'm betting on them to go down further, while I'm betting on rising Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. And because of that, I outperformed just dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. Dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin is shown here as this light gray line, but I got the performance that's shown in the black line. So there is a way to beat the market without trying to find the few winners. We can simply bet on the market structure, on the constantly increasing token supply of many altcoins. It's maybe not as straightforward as just buying a single token. Some things have to be learned, but that's why I made dedicated videos on the topic. I try to make this as simple as possible, so there's really only 2 videos that have to get watched. The first video is using perpetual futures to bet on relative valuations. The second video is risk management with relative valuation bets. Once you've watched this 1 hour of content, you know exactly what to do to get this kind of performance, to set up positions like this. After you've watched those 2 videos and you've joined the community, I will send you my favorite trade that looks very similar to Bitcoin relative to Aptos. If with that trade you do not make money after 1 month of holding the position, then I will refund the membership fee to you. So those $125 are actually not what you're risking. If you don't make money with this favorite trade, you just get that money back. Just message me and I will refund you, no questions asked. Of course, besides this favorite trade, I will also share every single trade that I execute in real time as well. You can simply just copy trade me. A link to Premium will pop up directly on the screen over here. Just click on that. It will lead you to the website. If it's your very first time here, feel free to subscribe as well. I publish videos on YouTube regularly. See you next time on YouTube or see you in Premium. Cheers!